Hi, ladies. Hello and welcome. My name is Wendi Earlbeck, registered dietitian, nutritionist, health and fitness coach. I am so excited to come and speak with you today. I know that this video is recorded and you're going to be listening to it, but I pray that you are having some really great success during this really great program that Taryn has offered. For those of you who I have done assessments with so far, it is absolutely wonderful. And I'm so glad that we've been able to connect and talk about your nutrition and dial in some of the habits as you create some of these wonderful behaviors for a healthier and more sustainable lifestyle. So I hope that this video is very clear. I've done some tests, but again, we just never know with technology. So nonetheless, let's go ahead and get started here today. So again, my name is Wendi. I am so passionate about nutrition. I'm going to talk to you today about some fundamentals, nutrition 101, essentially how to eat, how to be healthy, how to really just create some good confidence around some of the behavioral changes that you're going to be making during this program. So before I do begin though, I do just want to say a prayer and acknowledge God and how amazing He is, and that He loves us so much to bring us together to connect. So dear God, please allow this presentation to inspire and help clear up any misinformation or misunderstandings in nutrition. We know that those are in our world to try and help and guide us, but sometimes we as individuals can't always navigate the challenges within health, wellness, and nutrition. So please help us all better understand and inspire our hearts and kindness and protect us and keep us healthy and safe. We ask these things in your name. Amen. All right. So let's talk about how we can be better mamas, better health, better mama. So I, again, am a Christian. I'm here to inspire you through science and support. Those are my accolades on the wall there. I am an MSRDN. I'm very proud of it. I worked very, very hard. And why I'm passionate to give people good information that's based on science is because of the conversations that I encounter on a day-to-day basis working with clients, and how confusing things are and how frustrating it is to feel like you just are misled and then you don't get results, and how taxing that can be. And again, you ladies are mamas. You're absolutely amazing people, and you can do anything. So you deserve the best. So that's what we're going to provide you with today, is the best support, the best information to help you get success and achieve those goals. So again, as we are going to go through, these are just key strategies, right? Stress in your health. You can't pour from an empty pot. Building a plate, foods that give you really great energy, fueling for health, right? Healthy grab-and-go snacks, SMART goals, and then some key takeaways, because, right, we all have to have simplicity, and it gets to be challenging when, again, we're overwhelmed with information, and there's nothing worse than not understanding how to eat when we're out at a party, at an event, at home, on the go, right? So today I really, really want to provide those key practical strategies to help you optimize your health and wellness. So here we are. A healthy and happy mom is a better mom. And I want you ladies to read that again or hear it again. A healthy and happy mom is a better mom. Please be kind to yourself. The way that you talk to yourselves matters, right? Your kiddos see that too. I always tell ladies, but men as well, that, right, you should talk kind to yourself, right? You should never say anything to yourself that you wouldn't say to a friend or a family member or even your children. So some people joke with me that, well, I'm actually honest with them about things. And I think that honesty is really great, but we all have to acknowledge that during these challenging times, and in a pandemic especially, we have to be kind to ourselves, and we have to give ourselves grace. We have to acknowledge that there are so many challenges out there, and that we're doing the best that we can. And some days just surviving, hey, that's success, right? As long as we're taking those active steps to be one day closer to our future healthier selves, that's what really matters. So we're really going to talk about that today. And I just, again, ladies, be kind to yourself, right? Life is hard as it is, but you have birthed children. You have done the ultimate task. So just know that, making some of these changes when you feel overwhelmed, keep in mind you've done something much harder. It's just that with nutrition, we just have to string together enough consistent days to get that success to keep us motivated. right? So definitely don't neglect your own personal needs. Ignoring yourself, that can lead to further challenges, right? If you're taking care of everybody else, that's where I say you can't pour from an empty pot. That's where things become challenging and problematic, right? So we need to make sure that we prioritize ourselves so that we can help others. And I do a video on this on my Facebook page that I use with blueberries, in which you're pouring blueberries, right, into everybody else's cup, and then there's none left, right? So not only do you not have blueberries to feed yourself, but then your family is trying to take more blueberries from you and you don't have any to give, right? So take care of yourself first to have better help others. The less that you focus on your needs, again, the less healthy you feel. And again, that inhibits your ability to serve and deliver. So when we talk about, being a Christian and following God and trusting in Jesus, Jesus also believes in rest days. Sundays is a rest day, Sabbath day. So make sure that you're taking time for yourself. You're doing that wonderful thing, acknowledging your health and wellness, which you are, right? You're part of this program. So you're already taking those proactive steps, but definitely understanding that it's not selfish for you to do that, this process or this program. In fact, it is selfless, right? Because you understand the value of taking care of yourself. You are a professional multitasker. So this is a great illustration because many of the moms I work with, right, you are challenged with so many things, and here you are balancing and juggling all these things, finances, time. One thing I failed to point out on the first slide, my intro was very short, so again, I don't want to make it about me. It's never about me, it's about you guys. So if you're interested more about my background, I didn't talk a ton about it, go to my website. But again, this is about you, so just know that I'm very grateful that Taryn reached out to me to help support you ladies. But the clock, I want to point that out. That was on my first slide. Again, there's 1,440 minutes in a day, right? So how do we utilize those, right? We all have the same 1440 per day. So really maximizing our time and understanding the value of rest breaks and how many things we have going on. So you are professional multitaskers as moms, right? So you're trying to balance all these things: hobby, sleep, exercise, work, your career, being a spouse, trying to take care of your own needs, right? It becomes overwhelming. So again, that whole concept of like managing your time, the better you can manage your time, you can manage your thoughts, being positive, that's going to be absolutely critical. So that's why I just to briefly touch on stress and how absolutely important it is, stress in your health. So you may be aware or unaware of these statistics, but about 80% of our illness is due to stress, right? That's pretty significant and profound. So again, looking at our doctor visits and why we're actually going to the doctor, of course, we have our preliminary checkups, but 70 to 90% of those doctor visits are related to stress. So making sure that you keep your stress in check, and we know, right, as you'll learn, that the more we prioritize our nutrition, our sleep, our wellness, our mental health, the better we feel, the less stressed we are. So we can see a decline in those doctor visits, right? Better positive motivation along all things and areas in our life. So acknowledging stress, there's good stress and there's bad stress, right? The bad stress is the stuff that leads us to believe, right, that we're no good, that we're overwhelmed, we can't do it all. But good stress is saying, hey, like I have these responsibilities, I can check them off, I'll prioritize my list, and so on and so forth. So anyway, just to touch on that, so it's very important, right? Because it does affect all of us looking at our work, especially with the work from home. These are just really important to understand, the types of environment that we set ourselves up for, the food that we're eating, the access to food, our socioeconomic status, our psychosocial stressors, all these things go into play with our nutrition. So when I say to people, right, it's not your fault that maybe you're craving something, you're always hungry. Let's look at our stress, let's look at our jobs, let's look at our day-to-day, how we spend our time, and let's look at our environment, right? Our environment is either going to support our health and wellness, or it's going to negatively affect it, right? And we want to make sure that we control what we can. So controlling your controllables, that's something I say a lot to people. So if your environment isn't set up for success, like a healthy pantry, clean counters, sanitary, sterile, just kind of revisit that. Again, we're not going to be perfect and we're not going to have time for everything, but creating an environment where you can be successful is really important. So as we talk more about nutrition too, right? If you know that you are somebody who just has challenged self-control in areas with snacks that are unhealthy, like cookies, and you can't have the serving size, maybe we shouldn't bring those things into the house. But I will say this, there's a reason why you feel uncontrolled with those and that you can't have just a portion size, and that's because we are under fueling or under eating in nutrients. So These are all areas of stress, which Taryn will touch on, but I just wanted to, acknowledge them, and that stress does play a role in your nutritional choices. So it is all connected. So recognizing that your stress is the first step, right? And not turning to food as a coping mechanism, because many people do. It's always, alcohol, drugs, gambling, those things that really, in food, of course, that light up parts of our brain, right? And give that dopamine response that distract us from the moment. So that's why I must, preface and introduce these things, because they do matter. So nutrition 101, let's get into the fun stuff that I absolutely love. And I just can't wait to talk about. So what really drives us to eat? Hunger, our appetite, cultural and our social desire of food, our habit, custom, emotional comfort, convenience. Advertising can get us too on like what's healthy, right? Our social interactions. So things that are driving us to eat, first off, I would always say, right, is our hunger and appetite, and that's controlled by our hypothalamus. So if you are dehydrated, so for example, this is my hydro flask. It has 33 ounces of water. I got this because of my youth athletes, but we have to consume sufficient fluids or it's going to drive up our hunger. And many people will confuse hunger with thirst. So they assume that they're actually hungry when they're dehydrated. So it's a big thing. That's a very key concept that can help many people, right? With just kind of identifying our hunger cues again. But yeah, if you're starving or if you're moderately hungry, that's going to, right, drive our choices and what we eat. Many people that are absolutely famished are going to reach for that high sugar, high carbohydrate, low nutrient food, unfortunately, because that's just kind of how our brains are wired. So really just reassessing our behaviors is really, really important. So habit, custom. So what I work with people on, right, is let's get new habits. If you have this habit of starving yourself all day, right, that's going to lead to greater hunger and a greater risk of you reaching for something that's less optimal. We never want to label foods as good or bad, but suboptimal or optimal is what I like to say, right? Because we want to create a healthy relationship with food 101. Okay, so just kind of assessing, like, it always goes back to hunger. If I'm nourishing my body, there's a decreased risk that I would have those cravings that would be ravenous, right? We talk about, good quality nut butters and nourishing our body with good nutrition moving forward. So really just understanding why are we hungry, being mindful, right? Keeping a journal. I always tell people, write it down, right? And we'll talk more about that during SMART goals, but you have to have some acknowledgement or understanding of why you're hungry. And I think if we can just check in with ourselves more, we can identify those things and prevent ourselves from making a poor decision should we set up our environment, right, with fruits, vegetables, lean proteins, meal prepping. Okay, so I always ask people, what's your diet? So if we want to talk about nutrition 101, what diets have you followed? Many people insert crazy fad X, at the bottom there. That's true, right? Fad diets, keto, paleo, Whole30, Shakeology. They are all fad diets because they come and go, right? And they give people short-term results, right? And short-term is not for the long haul. They're not sustainable. If your program is not sustainable, your results are not going to be sustainable. So let me say that again. If your approach and program is not sustainable, your results are not going to be sustainable. So it's finding a diet, right, or a lifestyle that works for you. So a couple of the most highly ranked diets for the last 5 years are the Mediterranean diet and the DASH diet. They're very similar in which there's a huge emphasis on fruits, vegetables, lean proteins, nuts, seeds, right? And again, it's because it's whole foods. There's less limitations. It's not a restrictive diet. It's not a food elimination diet in which you're, not consuming certain foods. Because again, when the second that you restrict people, the more they crave something. So you tell someone, oh yeah, don't do bread, don't do dairy. They're going to want it, even if they didn't really even consume it in the first place. So that's the whole concept of like, right, it's a healthy way of eating because it incorporates whole foods, right? And those whole foods are nutrient dense in which they nourish our brains to the point where we don't get food cravings. So that's why I always say to people, right, we find what works well for us and we have to stick with that. And typically a byproduct of eating all the good stuff is that we tend to navigate towards the bad stuff a lot less, right? You're more likely to reach for that banana with nut butter and yogurt, right? Greek yogurt. If you know that it feels good, it tastes good, your body feels great after it, you don't have crazy cravings, you associate those things and you start to develop patterns, right? And then even consuming high quality meats, right? Oftentimes people are told meat is bad, so then they miss out on that with, B vitamins, key nutrients, and then protein. Oh, the effects of protein on satiety are, astronomical. So if we're going to put ourselves in a situation in which we're depleting our body and depriving it of essential nutrients, then yeah, you're going to get cravings. You're going to feel like, I'm going to sprint into the kitchen there and I'm going to rip off the doors and I'm going to eat everything in sight. And that's totally normal, right? If you're depriving yourself. So what I ask of you, right, is that we put down those swords and shields, with hearing me out, in the sense of, we don't need to focus on eating less. We need to start focusing on eating well. And a byproduct of that is that we'll feel better. I would say raise those shields and swords to some of those fad diets. And, if people tell you to cut fruit out of your life, cut them out of your life, because you need fruit. That's good sugar, right? It's coming with whole nutrients, fiber, right? It's not processed, refined sugar like you would find in your starches and your whites, right? Not our whole grains. So anyway, just acknowledging some of these diets. Like, diets aren't bad, right? Because for most people, the Mediterranean and the DASH diet, which is focused on people fighting hypertension, high blood pressure, again, it's whole foods. It's eating according to the plate. And we'll talk about that too. So again, what works for one doesn't always work for another. But again, thinking in terms of, if this is not sustainable, what I'm following, my results won't be sustainable. So if you lost a bunch of weight and then you gained it back, and that's you, okay, we've all been there. We've all tried things and it worked for a little while until it was like, I can't keep up with this. That's called being a human, first off, because it's okay. But also there's a better way to do it. You don't have to be miserable, right? We're going to talk about that today. So here's just some, everyday nutrition statistically, just there's the generic calorie recommendation. So I always like to point these out to people because it just gives you a concept of, where you're at. And again, when we sit down for our initial consult, as well as our 6-week check-in, we'll take a look at our calories, because there's a certain amount of calories, right, to create a calorie deficit, to lose weight, but also to support general health and wellness. Like adolescents, right, your kids, they have certain energy needs. I do work with a lot of youth athletes. So your kids are watching you. Again, you're a great role model for them. So they see what you're doing. So just keep in mind that you have different caloric and energy needs than what they have, right? Okay. So basically this just gives you a generic of like, okay, around 2000, right? But again, if you have a weight loss goal, if you have greater activity, it's going to fluctuate, and you're going to have higher protein, changes in carbohydrates as well as fat. That's our macronutrients. So macronutrients are our fats, carbs, and proteins, and our micronutrients are vitamins and minerals. So vitamin A, D, E, and K, right? And there's fat soluble versus water soluble vitamins. Our fat soluble vitamins are ones that, right, we require a fat source to absorb, right, and utilize. So for example, vitamin D must be consumed with a fat source, because technically it's a hormone, but it's a fat soluble vitamin. So consuming your vitamin D early on in the morning with your avocado, whole grain toast, and egg would be phenomenal, right? And also vitamin D does affect melatonin levels, so it's great to consume it early on, right? Okay, so anyway, I have moving forward recommended, depending upon where you're at, maybe 1800 calories, maybe 2000, maybe a little more. If you weigh more, you're going to have to start with a higher energy intake, and then over time we reduce that. So again, you can't start off too rapid when you're trying to decrease fat, because if you do that, right, you're going to plateau quickly and you'll have nothing to eventually cut from. So the goal with fat loss is to keep your calories as high as possible while still losing weight. So that's where the higher protein recommendations come in that I recommend to people. So this is MyPlate, right? This plate is designed to guide you. This is established by the USDA every 5 years. They do their healthy guidelines. So 2020, they've established new guidelines, but those are getting vamped out here as well, and they will be available to us soon. So this is, again, the plate that people should be aware of. If not, that's okay. This is the plate. It's a quarter fruit, a quarter vegetable, and then your whole grains, your protein, and dairy. So this is what your kiddos will see too in school. And of course, if they're an athlete, right, that plate will change the portions of it, right? Like the whole grain, right, that you'll see in that top quadrant that may increase or decrease depending upon their training needs and if they're in season, out of season. That's the same thing with adults, right? If you're doing more cardiovascular exercise, you're training for a marathon, you're going to need greater carbohydrates. And while I would argue that, you can attain quite a few carbs through fruits and starchy vegetables, but when you're training for a marathon like that, it just becomes quite more taxing. So that's where whole grains are excellent, and they're a good source of iron, B vitamins, great for energy production. So one thing, those that have done their assessments have heard protein and how great that is for satiety. We know that higher protein diets help people be more successful, especially women, and, lowering calories while losing weight, maintaining lean mass, right? And the more mass we have, the more fat we burn, which is great, right? I mean, that's a win-win. Maintain lean mass and then burn more fat. That's phenomenal. But keeping in mind too, long-term health, right? It's not all about weight loss. When we look at long-term health, we think about fighting off age-related muscle loss, right? Sarcopenia. For every decade after 40, we lose 8% of our lean mass. So that's quite profound. So that's where protein becomes incredibly important, right? All right. So one thing I always say for people, your plate should support your goals. I'm going to say that again. Nutrition with Wendi, your plate should support your goals, right? That is something all my clients understand, athletes included, of if you don't eat according to your needs, you can expect to achieve your goal, right? If you don't train, for your marathon, how do you expect to run your marathon? Just the same way of your nutrition, right? If we don't put the appropriate things on our plate, how do we expect to be ourselves? And then when you think about too, like, being a mom and hormones and stress and challenges and, just keeping in mind that everybody has individualized needs. So what you put on your plate is about you. It's not about anybody else, right? So your plate should be colorful. Eat the rainbow, as I say. So that moves on to our next point. Two, first off, front loading the calories. So I have had so many conversations with amazing women that are so busy, and I feel so grateful to have spoken with them, but they share with me their schedules and how they have no time to eat in the morning, and they're doing all these things. And I think, wow, gosh, that's so terrible. Like, I bet they feel, you feel exhausted. Let's get you eating more, right? I know you've been told this is a myth in the past that we should skip breakfast, we should intermittent fast, we want to burn more fat, and, the list goes on and on. What I would argue is that it doesn't make any sense for you, right? If you're the most busy in the morning, you're up, you're working out, you're going to work, you're at home, you're working on the ranch, you're busy, right? You're running around in the morning. You need those calories, right? You need them more now than you would in the evening when you're sitting around. Most people tend to be less active in the evening. So it doesn't make sense to me as a practitioner when I hear that somebody told them, like, well, you need to intermittent fast and you eat the majority of your calories later in the day. But we're less active throughout the day, right? It's for some people, but into those evening hours, most people, a greater percentage of people, are less active. So to me, that makes zero sense. If you're running around and you're busy, why not fuel your body and feel good while you're doing everything, right? Our lives are not meant to be miserable. Food gives us energy. The only way to get energy is from fats, carbs, and proteins, our macronutrients, like I had mentioned. So that comes from food. It doesn't come from a synthetic source of caffeine. Caffeine will lift you up and that will drop you. The only thing to maintain steady blood glucose levels, which drives our energy levels, is from real food, right? So that's why I say front load those calories. So here in this photo, I have raspberries, a banana, blackberries, chia, walnuts, and some nut butter with Greek yogurt. So again, this meets the needs of the plate, right? Minus are vegetables. So I don't have a veggie in there, but you can incorporate one in there as well if you would like. One thing I always like to tell people is a smoothie is a really great way to knock out those calories, those nutrients that we need. But I like to eat my calories. So anyway, front load those calories. So this smoothie, or this yogurt bowl has about 600 calories in it, right? It has 2 tablespoons of nut butter. It has about 5 ounces of Greek yogurt, all the fruits, and then those walnuts, and then chia, healthy fats, decreasing, any inflammation, supports hormones. It's going to fuel me up for the day that I'm going to be very busy. Right. So people tend to get cranky, you feel exhausted, and then in the afternoon you make poor decisions, right? Because you're so hungry and you're tired and you don't have any fuel in the tank. So if we front load those calories, you're going to feel better, right? So that's why I say yogurt parfaits are really great, because you can prepare those ahead of time. You can make 6, half a dozen, and have them ready to go for the week, right? So the more that you can eat and front load your calories, the more successful you'll be. And in fact, I was on twice now, but I've said this on many podcasts, is, front loading your calories, right? there's something to be said about it. And research supports those that eat, meal one or breakfast within, 30 to 60 minutes of waking, they tend to have a better body composition. So it's totally a myth that we need to restrict our calories in order to burn fat. You should be eating around the times you're most active, right? Because you're utilizing that fuel, not when you're sitting around on the couch or on a Saturday, right? That's when it's appropriate to say, okay, do we really need to eat all those carbohydrates? But again, that warrants further questions of like, well, what are my goals? It's individualized. It depends, right? For some people, they would need maybe a little bit less fat, maybe a little bit less carbs because they're less active. But if you're active, right, you need those carbohydrates for fuel. All right, so let's get more into my guidance, right? So this plate here, right, this actually satisfies everything minus that whole grain. So again, with my Nutrition with Wendi, obviously I'm a business owner, but how I coach people is that we reduce kind of that whole grain, especially if they're weight loss, and we replace that with greater vegetables and then a higher percentage of protein of that plate. So here I have a salad. I made turkey tacos, so I have some edamame, I have some garbanzo beans, and then I have some cheese on top. Cheese is great. Again, dairy is a great source of high quality protein. Leucine, which is a branched chain amino acid, which drives muscle protein synthesis. You want to eat dairy products because of that. Leucine is that limiting factor. So here you see spinach, we have almonds, blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, cucumbers, and some peppers. So very colorful, right? Eat the rainbow, but it satisfies the needs, right? So if this was, you and you're trying to increase your satiety, feel better, watch your carbohydrate intake because it's a high energy source. You may not need it that day, and you want to beef up that protein. This is a great way to do it. Most people would say, oh my goodness, look at all that fat. You're going to have almonds in there too. And the fact of the matter is that we can't fear fat. Fat is not bad. And I'm not demonizing carbohydrates either because I have fruit in there and there's plenty of sugar in fruit. But what I'm arguing is that whole grains are not bad by nature. They're very nutrient dense again. But again, people need to eat more fruits and vegetables. We need to eat more fiber. And a byproduct of that is that we tend to feel better, right? So I think it's a win-win. Like you get to not only eat more food for less calories, you get to feel better, right? That's amazing. Again, so whole grain bread, it's great, right? It has B vitamins, fiber, carbohydrates, but the fact of the matter is that you get more nutrients from fruits and starchy vegetables. So again, that's just a preference thing, but my clients have had really great success. So that's anecdotal, but I look forward to the new guidelines and what they might recommend. Right, so eat the rainbow. So a really great way, again, is to really enhance your aesthetic appeal of your plate, your palate. Here I have spinach, onions, rainbow carrots, and again, a very delightful aesthetic look. So you put this on your plate, you fill up your plate with fruit, vegetable, and then you add a protein to it. So good. But I believe that people underconsume fruits and vegetables. So many people, right, we need to look at our portion sizes. So with protein, but I always tell people, if you're still hungry, eat as many fruits and vegetables as you want. And you know what? They still lose weight. So that is that. So here is something I just to show you that, I am a health and fitness professional. I've been into nutrition my whole life. And the thing is that I really didn't see results or success until I started really changing the way that I built my plate, right? More protein and veggies for the win. Always choose a good quality protein and then fill up that plate with fruits and vegetables. So these are dinner plates because throughout the day I really do eat a lot of fruits. So again, it's individualized, but again, just to give you an appeal and look of the plate, colorful fruits and vegetables, right? And many people don't know this, but actually peppers are fruits, right? So if I had some peppers on here, it would satisfy those needs of the plate. Protein, a fruit, and a vegetable, omitting the whole grain. And again, if I do a whole grain, Ezekiel bread is a really great bread. They have muffins, they have wraps, tortillas. Those are really great. But again, I just tend to feel better with more fruits and vegetables. And so do my clients. Better digestion, better hormones. Your skin tends to clear up. But I don't know. I'm very pleased with the results I've had. And again, I used to be a cardiovascular focused person. Now I do my strength training sessions about 4 sessions a week at 20 minutes. And that works for me. Again, that everybody's different, but just to let you know, this took me about a decade, right? So for the people out there that are like, I just want it now and I want it to happen in 2 weeks, have patience, have consistency. These things take time. Anything in life that's worth having is worth earning. And it just feels so much better, right? When you can look back and say like, that was really hard. but I was consistent and I stuck with it and I had confidence in a plan, right? You didn't jump from plan to plan because that's not how you're going to get results. So this is also a part of it. Avoid getting thirsty, right? We need to drink enough fluids. There's so many people out there that fail to consume water throughout the day. And there's this recommendation of like 6 to 8 ounces. Water is really important, but it also drives our hunger, as we talked about, right, with the hypothalamus. So make sure that you're getting in sufficient fluids, 8 to 10 glasses every day, water, low fat milk, those zero sugar drinks, tea, coffee, really just watching, if you're putting mocha in there, if you're chocolate, things like that, watch that, of course. But LaCroix is a really great way to have something bubbly and something kind of flavorful. But the first thing you should do upon waking is drink a glass, a bottle, put the water bottle by your bed, have a plan put in place. And we're going to talk about SMART goals here as we continue progressing through, but really just avoid getting thirsty, right? When we're dehydrated, the time to hydrate essentially has passed. So the best way to assess your hydration is to look in the toilet at your urine. And if it's a clear color, you're very hydrated. But if it's that dark yellow, it's questionable if we've had sufficient fluids, right? So that's really important. So if you've ever noticed like you're getting headaches, you're feeling depressed, you're not feeling as energized, and you're tending to, gravitate towards less than optimal foods, that may have a lot to do, right, with the foods that we're choosing. And again, also the fluids we're choosing. So it's all connected. What's really great about fruits and vegetables too, I love them so much, is the fact that we can hydrate through them, right? So fruits and vegetables contain lots of water, which is really great. All right, so fuel up with breakfast. So like I said, front load those calories. Like, let's stop skipping breakfast. I like to call it meal one, but traditionally it's known as breakfast, breaking the fast within 30 to 60 minutes. So again, by having something for breakfast, there's the avocado, the veggies, this skillet of, egg hash, if you will. It supports neurotransmitter production, right? Right away in the morning. How we eat, how we think, how we feel, all those things affect our cognition, our ability to focus, our retention of knowledge, right? You ever feel very just kind of foggy in the morning and you can realize like, oh, I didn't eat breakfast, I didn't eat meal one. That's really important, right? And we want to go back to building that plate. Fruit, a vegetable, and lean protein, and maybe a whole grain. So again, increased risk of obesity. There's health-related conditions associated with skipping breakfast. So again, stop this intermittent fasting business. Again, if it works well for you, that's great. But for most people, they tend to challenge a lot of things in their life, and it becomes overcomplicated. They're like, no, I can't eat until 11 o'clock, even though they're hungry, and then they miss out on eating with their family, right? You ladies are busy moms. You don't want to miss out on, having that time with your family. So you should be able to eat at home. You should be able to eat at a party, at an event, at work, wherever, right? You shouldn't have to feel restricted, right? And we want to use food as a tool. Food is not meant to hurt us. It's meant to help us. So really prioritizing our health. And that means eating meal one. So hydrating, choosing, high protein, high fiber. A good example would be some eggs, some avocados, some spinach, half an apple with some nut butter. Really great way. So planning ahead. So we talk about, how many minutes in a day, right? That 1440, and making sure that we utilize our time well. So if we know we have a busy week coming up, right? How do we plan ahead? It's not, let's grab a quick shake. Let's think, yeah, real food. Wendy said that it supports neurotransmitter production. It makes me feel better cognition, better weight management, according to the science. Okay. It's Sunday, I'm going to meal prep for my family. I'm going to ensure that we have our fruits, our vegetables, our lean proteins. Maybe we make egg bakes. Maybe we take eggs and we put them in muffin tins and we put, veggies in there. Maybe we plan out like yogurt parfaits. We do overnight oats. Let's plan to pack this lunch, 3 times a week, if not more, every day. Maybe you could eat at lunch. Maybe you can pack things. You can put them at the fridge at work. Some people have that option. Not everybody does, but I would argue that planning is really, really important. So I always tell people to, like, you're amazing. You're moms. You plan everybody else's schedules. You need to make sure you plan for yourself, right? You got to give yourself grace, be willing to go to the market for yourself, not just for your family, right? I'm going to go back to, again, you can't pour from an empty pot. So that's why planning is important, right? So planning for success, or we plan to fail. There's something we said too, right? When we're on an airplane, right? And they say, even in the instructions for safety, right? Do not put on others' oxygen masks first. Put yours on first. Put on your own mask so that you can help others, right? So if you think about it, it sounds horrible, but no, it doesn't actually, because if you put your oxygen mask on first and there's a crash, you can help your infant, you can help your kiddo, you can help your family, but you can't help others if you're dead. So get the oxygen mask on, right? Let's get our planning on, let's get our meal prep hat on, and be successful, right? And really limiting, some of the suboptimal choices. So make your list, right? When you're going to the grocery store, we get what's on our list. We pick out and we prioritize, okay, these are the olive oils, these are the low cal, low sugar, high quality dressings, right? You can still be successful with dressings. They don't need to be demonized, but it's choosing the ones that are not, really high in fat, really high in sugar. Walden Farms makes a great calorie-free, sugar-free dressing. Those are really great. There's a million on Amazon. Even sugar-free barbecue sauce for your hubbies. There's a lot of great options out there. So, do your research, plan for success, right? Especially now during the pandemic, we're eating at home, we're making more meals. Just plan ahead. That'll help you also reduce your costs on healthy foods, right? Limiting that risk to make unhealthy decisions, right? Because if we're planning ahead and we have good food in the fridge, if we come home and we're famished, we have a meal ready to go. We put it in in the microwave, we heat it up, or we had a yogurt parfait ready to go. We had a string cheese and some almonds. We had those pairings, right? Those high quality snacks. So this is just something, again, just thinking about making the optimal choice, right? So if we look at our nutrient dense breakfast versus our nutrient poor breakfast, right? You can see here, we have lots of things. We have some whole grain cereal. This is out of a textbook that I used to teach a course. So it's a great illustration because, again, it's showing you like nutrient wise, the composition. So one thing I would change about this is I would throw more greens on that plate. But anyway, the nutrient dense breakfast. But you can see, right? So we have coffee, we have donuts. So the people out there that are like, yeah, eat less to be better with your weight, or eat less and you'll lose more weight, is not true. I would argue, again, eat well versus eat less, because the better you eat, the better you feel, the less snacking you do, the less reaching for poor nutrients. Again, our bodies are not, we need to respect our bodies. Our bodies need fuel. Our bodies do so much. So if we aren't nourishing our brains with what it needs, it's really difficult for us to be successful long-term, right? So you're going to find that constant cycle. You're going to blame your hormones. In fact, I'm not picking on anyone, but that's totally a misinformation to say, oh, well, you're just producing less estrogen, or you're producing more estrogen, is fluctuating. And that's all true, right? There can be those complications within an endocrinologist. But again, I would argue that most people do not fill up their plate with good stuff, right? Consistently. So then they get those ebbs and flows within their energy. So that's why I argue with people, like, before you even consider it's the diet, it's the hormones, it's all this stuff, blaming all these other things. And again, I just say that with the most grace and understanding and acknowledgement. What it's like to be a consumer in today's world is overwhelming. So what I want to say is, let's get rid of these fads. Let's get rid of this misinformation. And let's say, what's on our plate? Is it colorful, like Wendi said, right? Wendi said that we need to fill it up with more protein and more fruits and vegetables. Okay, if I do that, I noticed that I felt better, right? In fact, I didn't need that afternoon granola bar, right? In fact, instead of the granola bar, I'd rather have a string cheese. I'd rather have an apple with nut butter. Just little things like that. So again, looking at the estimated energy needs for adults, people overestimate what they need, and then the lack of tracking and journaling on what we actually consume, right? So most people would say, well, I'm not losing weight. But a lot of times, until people actually start tracking in MyFitnessPal, which you ladies are doing, or you start looking at the portions on your plate, you are over consuming in calories, and that's why you're not losing weight. It's not because your hormones, it's because we're flat out over consuming, and that's not your fault, right? We need to look at our portions. So understanding portions, 3 ounces is equivalent to a protein. That's about a deck of cards, right? 2 dice, that's fat, right? So things like that can go a long way. And I always say, fruits and vegetables, technically a fruit serving would be a half a cup and a veggie is 1 cup. But if people would just say, I'm going to eat as many fruits and vegetables as I want, I'm going to tend to be healthier, right? A byproduct of that is that you would likely lose weight. But when we really start to really measure and dial in, if I want to lose 50 pounds, I do have to facilitate a calorie deficit. How I go about that is working with a dietitian, right? Having my energy needs calculated out. which is what you are doing. So as you can see, between that 26 to 50-year-old, you really do have those, top tier needs, right? And again, after we reach adolescence to your kiddos right now, I mean, they're in a sport too, 3,000 to 4,000 calories per day. But that 19 to 2,000 is where most of us ladies would stay. So when we look at the serving equivalents, again, this is according to the USDA, they have this plate. You can always mix foods together, but again, I really love to err on the side of we likely don't need the whole grain, right? If we beef up that fruit and vegetable and high quality protein. So here's another part of Nutrition 101 is reading labels, right? Oh my goodness, I feel absolutely just broken and torn for so many consumers. I found myself before the pandemic, I used to go to the grocery store sometimes for funsies, and I would hang out near the supplement aisle and just to help people because I felt so bad. People are so just confused, and the marketing out there like low cal, low fat, low carb, low sugar. And then you look at the label and it's just all this trash. And then it's not even nourishing your body. So that breaks my heart to see. So what I always tell people is it's not that just because it's a processed food and it's in a container, that doesn't mean it's bad. There's plenty of almonds are actually processed, is the processing that takes place. So keep it in mind that we can't demonize those things, because the fact of the matter is those labels help us understand. In fact, there has to be a label on things like that because it's a part of the requirement. So indicating the serving size, what is the serving size? Acknowledging that most people just think the serving size is the whole package. Fortunately, we'll get to the next slide and there's a label that has been updated. But for most people, they don't even acknowledge these things, and that's okay. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But I would say either way, you're still misinformed because the labeling, the marketing tactics out there are relentless. So I'm so sorry that you all have to endure that. But fortunately, we can talk about that today and you can be more empowered. So just because the label, just because the marketing claim on the front says something, I challenge you, flip it over and look at it. Like these veggie straws. I have many amazing clients, again, that think that they're being healthy, right? That's like veggie straws. It's veggie in the label, but they flip it over and they're like, oh my word, right? Like this is super high sodium. This has a ton of fat. And then there's not even, for what it is, there's not even that many nutrients. I was like, yeah, you might as well eat some Doritos, I'll be honest, because at least you'll enjoy them. And I'm not picking on anyone if you like veggie straws, but I would just argue that, like, again, if you're eating those because you think they're healthier, really look at that label, right? And I empower you and encourage you to really assess the next time you're at the grocery store, what are the foods I'm choosing, right? Because if you put it in your cart, you're going to put it in your body, right? So we want to make sure we put good stuff in our cart. So I always tell people it's not your fault. We just need to put our thinking caps on when we're at the grocery store and make good choices. But if we have that list going into the store, we don't get outside of that. Okay, so here's the label. So the previous label versus the updated. So the updated is great because now it's a little bit easier to read. It's in bold. The calories are indicated per serving. Again, it's listing the daily value. It's including added sugars, the nutrients required, right? That has been also revised. The footnotes explain, right? This is all according to a 2,000 calorie diet. So this is a label, right? As you can see, there's a lot of carbohydrates in it. So for example, if we're going to pick out a protein bar, right, that's only 3 grams of protein. It's a ton of carbohydrates. We want to pick out a protein bar that has 20 grams, right, and then has less carbohydrates and it has dietary fiber in it. So most like Quest protein, Pure protein, Optimum protein, those things are going to be higher in protein, higher in fiber. That's the type of label you want to look at and you want to read and say, yeah, that's a good option. RX nut butters are also a really great snack. So these are great items that you can utilize, but understanding that label is key. And that should really, drive your choices as a consumer. So here's another part of the 101 is eating well out and about, because some of us do, depending upon where you're at region wise. I know many of you ladies are in Wyoming, and I know many have difficult transportation to the store because you guys don't have stores where you're at. I think that's awesome. I grew up out in the country of Minnesota, so we have grocery stores that, like, the best ones are like within 30 minutes. They're not within walking distance like in a city. So you really got to maximize your opportunities, but then also eating out. So you can still go to a fast food place and you can make good choices, right? Yes, a dietitian is telling you can make good choices at a fast food place. If you focus on a lean protein, right, avoiding the white fried bun, right? You can get it bun free, focus on grilled, broiled, baked, making sure you get a veggie with it. You really want to avoid anything fried or too fatty of meats. Red meat is not bad, but the preparation it can be problematic if you're putting a whole stick of butter, if you're frying it. Right, red meat is not bad. It's our preparation that can make it bad, right? So just want to make sure we clear up some of those myths too. And then some of the creamier dishes, the oily sauces can be very high saturated fat, and high saturated fat is problematic because that's what builds up plaque in our arteries. So if you are, if you're at a store, you're on the go, you're at a grocery store, go to the salad bar, pick out unsalted nuts, add some avocado, olive oil. Think about that plate, right? We always want to visualize that lean protein, the fruit, the vegetable, and the healthy fat to support satiety, right? And be sure to use olive oil as a dressing. Use a balsamic. Sometimes the salty, right? The salty dressings, those vinaigrettes, can actually be good. And I say that just because it increases that thirst mechanism, right? Which is really amazing. But then also Greek yogurt with berries, that can be a really great dessert. You could have that. You could order that, right? If you're at a certain place, instead of a dessert, that could be your option, right? That could be amazing. So here are some really great snacks. Again, we always want to have something in between our main meals. So eating the plate 3 to 4 times per day, right? As we've talked about. And again, what's great about this, right, is I've given you ladies your individualized calorie recommendations based on your weight, but all things aside, if we just eat, again, according to that plate and we get back to the basics, you don't really need to worry about calories, because a byproduct is that you're eating better, you're going to feel better, you tend to eat less of the junk, you'll lose weight. But it's when you don't stay consistent with it, that's when you tend to lose those results. So making sure that you're snacking smart. Snacks are awesome, right? You should utilize them. Hummus and veggies, a good fruit or vegetable, and then a protein bar, like an apple and a Quest bar. 20 grams of protein, you're getting some carb in there. String cheese and carrots, sliced cucumbers, hard-boiled egg. That's probably one of the best ones, because hard-boiled eggs are high protein, choline rich. They're a really, really great source of nutrients that are going to support great cognition, satiety, and you're getting some cucumbers in there, the green, and then also higher water content, which is really amazing. So that's really good too. And again, these are snacks in between. So a serving size, like a cup of cucumbers or a half a cup, and then 2 hard-boiled eggs. Same thing with our Greek yogurt and berries. We would do, the 2/3 cup or 3/4 cup. Make sure that your Greek yogurt is Greek yogurt. It's either unsweetened. Well, make sure that it's unsweetened, either 1% fat or fat-free, because then you can add nut butters. You can add other fats to it. You could add, nuts and seeds. Really great options. Apple and peanut butter or almond butter. I have a code for you, nuts and more, at 15% off. Yes, 15, which is really great. They're higher protein nut butter. Use 143 NWW for 15% off your next order. So it's called Nuts and More. And they use a palm oil, which it's really great because it helps maintain that integrity in the structure of the nut butter. So really great almond butter. Also great to pair with some dark chocolate or banana at the end of the day. Again, the more that we front load our calories, the better we feel, the healthier we are, the better choices we make moving forward. So a part of Nutrition 101 is giving the rundown on the fruits and vegetables. They are so powerful right now, right? And we think about a pandemic and boosting our immune system the right way, the science-based way. All we can do is sleep well, practice good hand hygiene, prioritize those fruits and vegetables, like eat the rainbow, right? So the more color, the better, can help decrease inflammation. So for example, papaya can reduce inflammation. It has very similar effects to NSAIDs, right? Anti-inflammatory drugs. So did you know this, right? Like cherries, all of these things. Pineapple is great for, helping with digestion because of the bromelain. We totally underutilize our fruits and vegetables. So that's, again, this is an education opportunity that I'm so grateful for, that we get to talk about these things today, right? So veggies, same thing. Oh my goodness, look at what broccoli offers for us. It can fight off cancer. Beets, dietary nitrates, right? It can cause vasodilation, in which it can improve blood flow. So my runners out there, you want to beef up your endurance game, reach for some of those beets. Make a beet salad, bake them in the oven, add some, rosemary, thyme, garlic. Really yummy snack. Kale, sweet potato, great source of beta carotene, manganese, vitamin B6 and C. The fiber, again, fiber is so important for helping us stay satiated. So it's like, now that you know these things, it's like fruits and veggies, man, that's where it's at. And then that lean protein. And then it's all balancing your day. So thinking about everything that we've been talking about today with the breakfast, a mid-morning snack, lunch, a mid-afternoon snack, a pre-dinner snack, and our dinner. So breakfast, right, front loading our calories. As we progress through the day, our meals should get smaller, right? And sometimes you may even find like for dinner, we're just gonna have a bunch of veggies because you've consumed sufficient protein throughout the day. So ladies, I would say get into the habit of understanding my concept of my protein serving is a deck of cards, 3 to 4 ounces, right? And then making sure you have a fruit and vegetable, prioritizing these things, it makes a huge difference. So here is a blueberry protein smoothie I wanted to provide the macros on. So here we have about 15 grams of fat, about 42 grams of carbs, 8 grams of fiber, and 35 grams of protein. How amazing, because you have your protein powder and then your cow's milk. So you can decrease that. Again, if you're tracking in MyFitnessPal, you can save this recipe and then you can add it and change it, alter it. Maybe you don't want to use blueberries or spinach. Maybe you want to use kale and blackberries. But the fact of the matter is that you can put recipes in there. I have a bunch of protein pancake recipes that I kind of change and alter, but I know like, okay, these are the ingredients. These are the macros. So then it supports my goals, right? Because I have goals too. So I also track every day. So once you get into a habit though, you understand portions and you don't need to track, but it's nice to know, right? If you're traveling, I'm often traveling. So I need to know like, okay, I had, about 30 grams of protein there and I missed that meal. Well, if we plan ahead, right, we won't miss meals, but tracking is such a phenomenal tool. So here again, I get to the protein intake because again, that's a huge part of the misinformation and then society and our RDA and our guidelines. So sedentary men and women, we should be doing the RDA for protein is 0.8 grams per kilo. Most of anyone who I work with, we do a higher protein diet, almost 2 times the RDA. We're in that 1.4 to 1.6 to even 2 grams per kilogram. And that can definitely increase. So this is just kind of some information as an FYI, because I know that there are some endurance athletes in the group, which is awesome. Cheers to you ladies on that, because running is very hard, but it's a great mental game. So it's really amazing. And then here are some other quality snack ideas as well. So I know Tyron's going to share these with you. So granola, low-fat Greek yogurt, make sure that you be very careful and mindful of the type of granola that you pick out, because many granolas are very high sugar. But again, some of these, like one apple and then 3 tablespoons of peanut butter, like it's a lot, but like if you really think about it, like again, if we have 2,000 calories to play with and you feel really satiated with a protein, a nut butter of fat, and then that apple, that's a great snack. And I have several women that lose weight by eating a snack of 3 tablespoons, right? Because sometimes the nuts and more nut butter is so good, it's so hard to eat the serving size, right? Or you have hummus and baby carrots. So calories are not meant to be demonized, right? We need calories to feel good and to feel energized. So these are just some really great snack ideas. Grilled pita bread, hummus, avocado, tomatoes, just snack ideas. Again, we want to keep the snacks depending upon your goals, right? A snack can be a meal, but snacks on average about 200 to 300 calories. You don't really want to exceed that, because then that could fluctuate your hunger, or you would have so much satiety that you may miss lunch and then we're too hungry. So just finding a happy medium with that. And then some overnight oats, so taking your whole grain oats, your fruit, your nut, your seed, your sweetener, and then adding those things. So cinnamon, vanilla, nutmeg, honey, agave. Being very careful though, agave is very high sugar. So is honey though, but it's natural sugar, right? And there's a lot of really great environmental positives, allergies, right? If you use honey that's from your local area. So just keep that in mind. But fact of the matter is, right, is we need to focus on our nutrition, and that really affects every other area of our life. Better focus, improved sleep, decreased fatigue, better long-term health, better stamina, higher energy, better immune function, preservation of muscle and bone mass, decreased risk for injury, swelling, inflammation, and pain, right? As we talk about these things, the more that you can dial in your nutrition, right? And the more that you can feel empowered and confident about your choices, the more consistent you are, the better results you have. Right? Living a healthy lifestyle, it's not easy, but it's definitely doable, right? And we just take it one day at a time. We give ourselves grace. We be kind to ourselves as mamas. Manage your stress levels, eat a balanced diet, really focus on, getting that saturated fat replaced with unsaturated fat, right? Saturated fat, the animal fats, and the polyunsaturated, monounsaturated fat, the avocado, really great thing, olive oils. Focusing on our sleep, 7 to 9 hours, avoiding high sugar, empty calorie foods, eating at least 3 to 4 servings of fruits and vegetables per day. The more, the better, right? Eat the rainbow. Move daily, right? Set a goal. We're going to talk about that in the next slide. But controlling those portions, focusing on more protein and quality carbohydrates, right? And you can achieve carbohydrates through fruits and starchy vegetables. And then, of course, your fluids, right? As we talked about hydration, avoiding that dehydration, because if you're dehydrated, you're likely going to reach for suboptimal foods. So this gets into kind of the nuts and bolts of the most important things here. I'm going to grab a quick sip because I want to stay hydrated too. So our SMART goals. If you don't set a goal, you tend to be less successful, right? For most people, we've all set goals, we just didn't realize it, right? So the more that you map something out, the more successful you will be, the more easy it will be to stay on track versus, oh, okay, well, I kind of want to achieve that. So first off, it's always being honest with yourself and being specific about your goal. The more specific you are, the more likely you are to be able to understand it and to achieve it. And then writing it down, right? Those that write down their goals by research are more successful. So being specific, S, so SMART. So SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. So being specific, what do you want to do? How are you going to measure it? How will you know when you've achieved it? So measuring, right, is a timeline of like, okay, so for weight loss, we'll talk about goals, but 50 pounds, okay, I knew I achieved it because the scale, I use scale as a measurement tool. And I lost the 50 pounds. I went from 200 pounds to 150 pounds. Achievable, is it in your power to accomplish it? Like being honest with yourself, say like, is that your goal, or is that your husband's goal, or your friend's goal, or I thought I wanted to achieve that at one point, but now I don't want to. Honoring where you're at is really, really important in being healthy and being successful, right? That's really important. So what do you actually want to achieve, right? And why? What will your life look like? When you picture your healthiest, best self, what does that look like? What are you doing? Set a SMART goal around that, right? And being realistic. Can you realistically achieve this goal? And then the timeline, right? So when do you actually anticipate accomplishing it? Is it, losing the 50 pounds by December 31st, 2020, or is it, February 2021? Having that timeline, that goal, that plan, that structure, that is all critical for SMART goals. So these are examples, right? Exercising for 30 minutes at least 4 days per week for 2 months, which will be logged on a calendar. So, right, we're specific. We know what we're doing, right? We're specifically focusing on physical activity. It's exercise for 30 minutes at least 4 days per week for 2 months, which you're going to measure on a calendar, right? And how will you know that you achieve it? Because you're going to mark it on the calendar every day and you have a running track record. The others, eat 2 meat-free dinners per week for 1 month. Again, one thing I would challenge is if we were in person, I would ask, okay, what's missing? Well, what's missing is our tracking, our measurement. Is it going to be in an app? Is it going to be in our phone? Are we going to journal about it? Spending 60 minutes of screen-free time with my children every Saturday. Again, what's the tracking, mechanism? Putting away all mobile devices and shutting off all screens by 9 p.m. on weeknights for 1 month. These are all, again, these are goals that my clients have set in the past. I'm just using these as examples because they're really good. Attend church each Sunday for 6 months. I think that's awesome. Pre-pandemic, of course, but we can tune in online. So you can always have that relationship with Jesus, and he loves you and he wants you to be successful. So always carve out time for him. Walk at least 10,000 steps each day. So tracking on a pedometer at least 5 days per week, a Fitbit, a step counter. That's a really great goal. Many people love that, right? The more that we tend to move, the more calories we burn, the healthier that we are. And then strength train for 25 minutes, at least 3 days per week for 1 month. And then of course we would record it in a calendar. So those are the types of things that are really important. So as we start to wrap up here, these are kind of my key takeaways, right? Menu planning is key to making healthy choices on the go. We talk about going into the grocery store with a plan. Portions are essential for success, right? Think about the deck of cards, the dice for fat, fist for fruit, right? Building that plate, fruit, vegetable, lean protein, preparing snacks, fruits, proteins, veggies on hand, having those around the clock access, right? Time is so important. How we use that time, how we spend it, right? That's valuable. And that's why time is something I always acknowledge, right? Because we can only control what we can, but we can control how we spend our minutes. We can't control that, we only have 40 minutes in a day. but we can control how we use them. And then also tracking, measuring, journaling, recording. You must track what you're doing, and that's why you're using MyFitnessPal. There must be some sort of measurement in how you're achieving this goal, right? You can't measure, you can't achieve what you don't track, okay? So as we wrap up here, I'm so grateful that I had the opportunity to record this and that Taryn is going to share it with you and it's going to support you. This is a great way to contact me, to follow me. I share lots of Eat the Rainbow, high quality proteins, just positivity on my Facebook, on my Twitter, on my Instagram, Nutrition with Wendi. Please reach out if you have questions. I'm so grateful to work with all of you. I love what Taryn's doing with the program. I think it's amazing. Really focusing on yourself. And again, you can't pour from an empty pot. Taking care of yourself first so that you can better take care of others is key, right? Hydrate, nourish your body, eat the rainbow. A colorful plate is a healthy plate. So you ladies are amazing. I'm so inspired by you because you're mamas. Again, you can do anything. I really hope that you take care of yourselves and that you found lots of value in today's content. Please have a blessed day, and I look forward to our 6-week check-in. All right, thank you so much, ladies.